So thank you very much for joining us on our Lunch and Learn session this month, our monthly event, our slightly more formal learning event for the VIP members and guests of the Training Designers Club. I think everybody knows me. I'm Sheridan, the community manager of the Training Designers Club. And today I'm very pleased that Jennifer is going to demystify e-learning for us, because this is bread and butter to her, and I know to a lot of us sitting here today, it still feels a little bit like a dark art. We're comfortable doing live. We've transitioned to virtual, and that's fine. And obviously, being live in the classroom is our bread and butter. But I think the one thing that we've learned over recent years is that the more variety we can have in our blend, the better. And that blend includes live, virtual, pre-recorded sort of video-based training, which both Jeanette and Phil have done sessions on, and it can include e-learning as well. So Jennifer, do you want to just give a brief introduction and take over?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. Jennifer. I think most of you probably know me already, been a member for quite some time, so I think our paths have probably crossed by now, but if not, I'm Jennifer, based in Perth, up in Scotland. I'm really happy to be here. I have been self-employed for, I think, about 10 years, and I've worked in virtual classrooms for probably about 12 years, I think, whether that's in Zoom or Adobe or WebEx or Teams, all of the above, and got involved in e-learning somewhere along the way, mostly just to add to existing programs, just to add a little bit extra. But I've also designed complete programs as e-learning as well. So Sheridan and I have obviously talked before a few times about the benefits of e-learning. I like it when it's done well. I don't like it when it's the boring click, just click through it. None of us. I know that as part of, being a member of the Training Designers Club, you all want your training to be highly engaging, interactive, useful, and all of those good things. And e-learning can be a method for you to do that as well. So that's kind of what got me into e-learning, and this is what we're going to sort of focus on today. So give me a thumbs up from the reactions button if you're happy with all of that, but speak up if you have any other questions or if you brought any other questions with you today. Okay. So to get us started, let's just make sure that we're all talking the same language here. So tell me in chat, what do you think we mean by e-learning? If you had to define it, what would you say? Yeah, and so Jackie, that is often the term that's used for any learning that involves technology, but we're going to kind of narrow that down today because I want to concentrate on those self-directed pieces, the self-directed stuff that's done online. Yeah, computer-based, it's asynchronous, it's all of that kind of thing. It can be interactive, and it can include lots of other sort of mediums as well. Fancy words so early on. I know, excellent. Let me show you just a couple of examples so that we are all sort of talking that same language. Here's some e-learnings that I have created in the past. So this one was one that I did at the start of the pandemic because so many charities and local organizations were just trying to persuade people to join things virtually, and for lots of people Zoom was brand new. So I created this quick e-learning just to share with people so that they could see exactly what it would look like and how they would join a Zoom meeting. So not to cover any of the content with you, but just to show you what it can look like. It's just a little bit more interesting than a one-pager PDF with screenshots on it. So there's that one. Here's one that I did in a program called Storyline, where you can sort of click on the different buttons. There is also some quizzes here. And you can do little videos like this, and it was all done within Storyline. So you can sort of show people where to click. There's the option where they actually have to click themselves to walk through that kind of demonstration. And here's just one other one I wanted to show you, because this one was really, it was part of another course, and the organization that I was doing this for wanted to give everybody on the course basically just this whole book load of background information, because the policy people got involved and they wanted to give all that information, which is great, but not everybody wants all of that. So instead of giving them a big PDF or lots and lots of links to other websites, I put it into a quick e-learning where people can just navigate through the bits that they need. And it's just broken up a little bit by different images. It's still a lot of text, way too much text than I would ever recommend, but that was what they wanted. And if I keep scrolling, I'll maybe get to this part. There's a nice sort of checklist here, so people can sort of check off all the things that they're going to do. So just adding that extra bit of, as I say, just a bit of extra interaction.
Yeah,
so
Jennifer, I'm
yeah,
just going to interrupt you there. I think that's an important point, isn't it? Because when we all work with clients, they do like to make sure everyone's got all the information. And just presenting it like that just makes it look a little bit less daunting, doesn't it? So it's all still there. Like you say, it's not the world's most exciting, but you don't look at it and think, no way.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, because it exists in a sort of website, people can bookmark that. They can go back to it whenever they want to. And also it keeps the client happy because you're including all of that information, but you're adding to it.
And so it's a bit more manageable.
Bit more manageable, yeah, exactly. Any questions?
And more manageable for everybody, both the trainer and the trainees, or whatever we want to call them.
Yeah, absolutely, Bryony, yeah. Anyone else, any thoughts, questions, comments so far? No, but we're all sort of on that same page now in terms of what we actually mean by e-learning. Now, some of those could be, and some of those were kind of standalone courses, but the way that I usually use it, and as I say, the reason that I got into it in the first place was just to add to the blend. So whether your live lessons are face-to-face or whether they're virtual, I'm sure that they're not just one-off events. Maybe you add some kind of welcome email, or maybe there are other components for your learners to be doing before or after or in between those live lessons. So let me just check in with everyone. First, how experienced are you? First, when it comes to designing sort of blended programs, using your stamp tools, go ahead and grab those annotation tools and add a little stamp where you would say you would be in terms of designing blended programs and then in terms of designing e-learning as we've defined it today. To get those stamp tools, I think you all know where they are: view options, annotate, or type the number in chat if that's easier. Okay, so let's hear from Caroline. What kind of things do you include in your blended programs, Caroline?
Different activities, quizzes, word searches, go finds.
Okay.
Tend to be my things for putting into a blended program.
Cool. And how do you get those word searches and things to your learners? Do you email them out? Are they in Word documents? What's the kind of format of those?
I prefer face-to-face, so they're usually printed. But if not, then it would be an email.
Okay, cool. Okay. And what about you, Jackie? What kind of things do you include in your blend?
So things like activities. So I've been using Quenza recently, where you can direct people to activities, either group activities or individual activities. So sometimes it can be for everybody to do, but sometimes it might be for an individual to get involved in as well.
Okay, that's cool. And then do you incorporate that into the sort of live component? Do you discuss it when you meet together? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, particularly if there's in the program there's like group coaching sessions, then that sort of stuff for me has been really useful in those, because it tends to be a bit more about the group leading the way rather than me leading the way.
Yeah, great. Okay, that sounds really interesting. Yeah, I'd be interested in the name of it as well. Brian, so Jackie, if you wouldn't mind popping it in the chat, that would be helpful, I think, for lots of us. And let's hear about some of the e-learning that you have experience creating. So Brian, tell us a bit about the programs that you use, or what kind of e-learning you've created.
So in my job prior to the one I'm just leaving, just to be complicated, we used a system called Nimble. So I brought that in. We used it mainly for pre-course work, and a little bit, we were starting to use it a little bit for kind of post-course work as I was leaving, but it was mainly to get across some of the messages. Things like if we were running a sales course, that all the communication, not all, that sounds awful, communication skills stuff would be created as pre-learning beforehand. But what I've been using a little bit more recently, we'd only just started using it, so I can't claim for a second that I'm an expert in it, is using Microsoft Sway.
Okay, yeah.
Which is a freebie tool as part of a Microsoft 365 package.
Yeah.
So what you were saying earlier on about doing something that's not just a PDF, Microsoft Sway was, because it was free, was the route that we were planning to take with that for some of our onboarding. So on the page, it's like a cross between a PDF and a microsite or a website. Yeah. So you've got your page, you kind of navigate down it, and you can embed things. So you can embed a PDF in it, you can add in a link to a website, you can do a voiceover, so you could put an image on the page. So some of the people that didn't want to do videos for us, we were just going to put their photograph on the page and have their voiceover on it. So I was quite liking the look of that while being forced to use something that was free.
Yeah. No, I think it does have lots of really good functionality, and if you're already paying for Office 365 and you've got it, then yeah, why not use that? That can be a great thing to incorporate in your blended programs. Jasmine, tell us about some of the things that you have created in terms of the e-learning.
I think I misstamped. I haven't really done that much e-learning.
What have you done? Do you want to share?
I haven't really done anything.
Okay, that's all right. That's fine, no problem. Michelle, did you want to share what kind of e-learning you've created?
It was quite a long time ago, but a lot of it was voiceover PowerPoints. So, for example, I was working with RBS, and there was a lot of information that needed to go out quite quickly. So we did quite a lot of presentation, but we also did the voiceovers to go with it as well, and just to give a bit more information to people, I guess, to make it feel a bit more user-friendly as well. And then I have used a platform called Moodle before, when we had a blended management development course, and that's actually something I'm looking at again myself for my own freelance business.
Yeah, cool. Okay, good. So we've got lots of experience already in the room, and I know that lots of you don't, stamped further down the scale, and that's absolutely fine. That's what today is all about. Let's just take a step back though. So if we think about the kind of blended programs that you are currently using, what components do you already include, or what else could you include? So other things, other bits of material that people could be using before, in between, or after the kind of live component. Yeah, video, things like that. What else? Tell us in chat. Yeah, forums, Michelle, they can be really useful just for people to share ideas and questions and things beforehand. Podcast, yeah. Teams channels, yeah, making the most of any technology that people are already using, I think, is always really useful. Those reflection activities, yep. Whether that's, you know, journal about something or reflect and think about something, peer coaching groups, yeah, great. You've already got lots of ideas. So that blend, if you like, might look like this. Right now, instead of me explaining all of this, even although I know that you know all of this, let me pop a link into chat. Go ahead and click on the link and have a wee look at that. And just speak up with any questions or comments or ideas that you want to share as you're having a look through that. And let me ask you all, what are you using to sort of keep it all together? Anyone using something like GiraffePad or a learning management system? Anyone want to unmute and tell us, how do you keep all of that together?
When I was using Nimble, it's got its own LMS.
Mm.
So I was using that for it. We hadn't got as far as looking at how we were going to track it through Sway.
Mm. Yep.
And that was one of the things that I was concerned about. But I no longer have to worry about
it. Not your problem anymore.
As somebody said to me the other day, not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yes, I think, again, people have had teams. So where I've been able to, where they've been enabled, setting up a channel on Teams allows you to do prompts and reminders and give documents, keep files, links to videos, all sorts of different things. So you know, just using Teams channels, I think can give you a lot to pull things together.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's lots of different options. It doesn't need to be a big fancy learning management system, but we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail later on. And so you could actually use e-learning for a lot of these different pieces. Anything that's like reading can be ideal for e-learning because, as I said, you can break that up nicely with some images or some other interactions, but you can include the others as well, especially if you want to add some context around it. So instead of just sending someone a link to a brilliant TED Talk, you could embed it on an e-learning with a bit of blurb around what would be useful about it, and maybe even a quiz on it afterwards to encourage people to kind of look at it in a bit more detail. So that way you're just adding that extra little bit of value, that extra bit of you know, ways for them to sort of learn and reflect instead of just a link to a video to watch. So let's look at when to actually use e-learning. And for this, I'm going to pop you into breakouts. And when you get there, ideally, we want one person to share their screen. I'm going to give you an e-learning to use for this. Now, I wouldn't normally use e-learning in this way, okay? But I want to just give you some examples so that you can see the different possibilities. So there's a link in chat. Go ahead and click on that link so that you've definitely got it when you get into your breakout rooms. And as I say, when you get there, just have one person sharing their screen, and that way you can talk through the different items together as a group as the other person sort of drives and completes the e-learning for you. Everybody okay with that? Speak up with any questions.
Just before you put us into breakout rooms, Jennifer, can I just say how absolutely wonderful this is for me to have someone who is so adept at virtual training, for me not to have to worry about it all. It's just so lovely.
You know what, Sheridan? I actually wouldn't be able to give you the control to do it for me.
Oh, have I got to do it?
No. I just mean, like, even at the start when people were coming into the waiting room, I was trying not to press the button, but I couldn't help myself by actually doing it. All right, folks, let me put you into breakout rooms. Let's take 10 minutes for this so that you've got plenty of time to discuss each of them and just have a chat about, share your experiences of any that you've already used and maybe how you've used them. So I'll start those breakouts just now. Enjoy your discussions. Let me get the recording going again. All right, welcome back, folks. Welcome back. Now, I'm actually just going to cheat a little bit and show you that these are my answers, but I'm interested in the ones that maybe you disagreed with or any that you maybe had to talk about for a bit in your group. So just speak up if there's any in particular that you want to just talk about.
I think one thing we did say was the fact that the client has an LMS does not mean that e-learning would be the right choice.
Yeah.
It depends on what the task is. So whether they got an LMS or not is irrelevant almost.
And they could have an LMS that nobody uses because they hate it.
Yeah,
So
it's
why
a
would you put your stuff on it?
Really old and crappy one.
But also, but a lot of the time they go, because we've got this expensive LMS, we need to put everything on it, don't they?
Yes. Yeah.
Michelle, you got your hand up.
One thing I mentioned about the requires discussion, I would challenge that a little bit, because you can do asynchronous discussion in a forum. And that's what we did on a global management development program, where you had someone who's out in Asia and then someone who's in South America, and they're coming in and still talking about the same thing. It's just not live.
Yeah.
You can create group discussion in that way, obviously using the right tool.
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. So, I mean, it's not usually the right choice for e-learning. Depending on the software that you're using, you may or may not be able to have the discussion in the actual e-learning. You might need to have it somewhere else. But if you do have the option to have those discussion forums elsewhere, like even in a Teams channel or on something like GiraffePad or somewhere else, then that can be great. And of course, depending on the software, you could have them actually type in and have discussions on there as well. But yeah, I agree, Michelle. Those asynchronous conversations can be really useful. I also agree about the fact the client LMS part, but sometimes it's just easier, and it depends on lots of things. We'll talk about that when we talk about LMSs in just a moment. But anything else that any other conversations that happened in the breakouts you want to share with the others?
I'd also said that the standalone medium, so something like it's a TED Talk or it's a YouTube video already, I'd thought that could be right choice.
Yeah.
I think we wanted a third pile.
Yeah.
We wanted a right choice, wrong choice, could be, dependent on context.
Yeah, absolutely, Bryony. And I would agree with that, right? I've put it in the wrong choice because if you've got like that video and you don't really need to add anything to it, then why do you need to? Just send them the video. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you want to add some context around it, or you want to add some kind of knowledge check quiz, or you want to add anything else to it, or package it up in a nice little bowl with a video and a podcast and an article all on the same page, then absolutely let's use e-learning.
Or if it was a piece of pre-course work that it was essential that they'd seen it for a piece of your learning to actually work, if you were doing it a classroom piece afterwards, then I'd kind of want it to be on some form of e-learning that I could track, so I could see 80% of my audience haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I might be able to give them a nudge the day before to say, you really need to watch this before you come into the training room tomorrow. Or I'd perhaps know who hasn't watched it. And that might lead me to put the people who have watched it into groups doing the original thought out exercise, and the ones who hadn't doing something maybe slightly different.
Yeah, brilliant. And in an ideal world, that's exactly what you would be using the e-learning for, or that not the e-learning, that's what you'd be using all that tracking information for. But whether you can track or not will depend on whether you're actually using an LMS to track it or not.
Absolutely.
Before we jump ahead to that conversation, though, I want to just talk about increasing participation, because a few of us have kind of mentioned that. And it's always key with blended programs, isn't it? Is how do we actually get the people to do the stuff, to do the pre-work, to do those bits and pieces in between. Now, I don't have the answers here. This is a whiteboard. So grab your text tool, add your tips here. Like, what does work for you? What tips can you share about persuading or getting people to do the work that we need them to do? Go ahead and use your text tool. If it's easier for you to use chat, then feel free to use chat instead. Maybe some of these. Call it module 1. Yep. Competitions. Penny, do you want to talk a little bit about that, how you're gamifying it or making it a competition?
So, you know, if you have a piece of e-learning that therefore either you are getting people to get silver, gold, bronze, standard, etc. So depending on whether that's appropriate, you could potentially be publishing those sorts of things. You could have a project or a task coming out of the e-learning, and whoever does the best at that. Say for example, you've done a piece of e-learning, create your own story or just give us an example of when, or whatever, and then you can get those in and sort of award prizes for excellence, etc., etc. So
yeah, great. Yeah, Penny, you're right, that can be really effective. There's lots of other really great ideas on this screen here. I'm going to grab a quick screenshot of it. But yeah, I think, explaining the benefit or the necessity there as well, making sure that it's relevant information, making sure that you talk about it in the live lessons, and knowing your audience, right? Knowing how to sort of sell it to your particular audience, because every group of learners is going to be different here, I think, depending on the culture of where they work. Some of them will assume that it has to be completed. Some of them will assume that it's optional. But yeah, selling it as part of the program. Right? It's not an additional thing nice to have. But also, I think that idea of making it easy for them to access it, making it not too complicated, making the most of any systems that they currently have in place. And also thinking about their specific roles. So I did some e-learning for volunteers of the National Trust for Scotland. Now, a lot of these volunteers are working in castles in the middle of nowhere in Scotland, and they wanted these e-learning modules to be available for everyone. Well, do you think that's possible? Not really. Not everywhere in Scotland has super fast 5G networks. Usually not in those castles where they were located. So we had to make sure that it was something that they could also download and look through in their own time offline. We also had to make sure that there was no audio, because the last thing they wanted was for people, visitors, tourists, to walk in and hear an e-learning about selling memberships. So, it's just because you can do something doesn't always mean that it's the right thing. Let's just grab a quick screenshot of this, because I want to move us on that, along those same lines, by thinking about these learning management systems, or an LMS. I like to think about learning management systems as a house, right? That's where you need to house your e-learning. Just like YouTube hosts your videos, they need to live somewhere. Now, most organizations will have some kind of LMS. That might be Moodle or Docebo or Talent LMS or loads of other ones that we've talked about. And we've talked about LMSs a little bit, but I just want to mention a couple of things here. I want to give you another opportunity to think about blended programs. So I'm just going to mention a couple of things here. We've talked about the tracking and the analytics, and most of the time you're going to need an LMS to do that. So for example, today you've seen us use some e-learning materials. I've just shared the link with you in chat. I have no visibility on whether you even clicked on those. I don't know who took those. I don't know what scores you got, because that's just like it's almost like a preview that I've sent you. And that works well in this kind of environment where I don't need to know. But if it was an actual assessment and you had to report back to the organization, you would need some kind of analytics on that. And that's where the LMS comes in. It's the learning management system that holds the e-learning and that can report back on it. So learning management systems and e-learning in an LMS is great for compliance. For the learning management systems that I'm talking about are ones that can house SCORM content, SCORM, SCORM. Don't ask me what that stands for because I can never remember. Someone else here probably does remember, but I can't remember. Something really technical. Basically, when you publish your e-learning, it will spit it out in the format of a zip file. So there'll be hundreds of files in there. And then that zip file is what you need to upload into an LMS system. You don't need the LMS to create an e-learning module, no. Although with some LMSs you can create in there, you can author them in there.
See, I just wanted to raise that, Jennifer, because I think that's a common confusion, unless it's just me being stupid. But I think because as a lot of us are freelancers, we don't have an LMS, therefore we can't do e-learning, but we could, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to have an LMS because I used to do a few sort of open courses, but I kind of stopped doing them and I cancelled my LMS subscription, but I didn't cancel my Articulate, which is the tool that I use to author, because I can publish the e-learning as a zip file and then send that zip file to whatever client. They can upload that onto their LMS. And that's the reason you need an LMS that will take that SCORM content. If you're using something like, I think someone mentioned Thinkific or Teachable or any of these other platforms, they can't cope with SCORM content. And so you can't upload a zip file because it won't know how to deal with that. Okay, you can still add a link to a URL like I did today. People can still complete the activity, but you won't have the tracking from that. You'll only get the tracking and the analytics if it's an actual zip file, which is the SCORM part. Questions, comments? I know Alex is going to be doing a more technical overview of e-learning, so you'll be able to ask her some of those types of questions, but any questions I can answer on that right now? Penny?
So was the e-learning that we looked at just located on your PC?
Located just in the cloud.
In the cloud, yeah.
Yep. Just like a web page almost. Yeah. And I just want to very quickly, as I say, Alex is going to show you how to do all of that, but I just wanted to very quickly show you what is possible. So as I say, I'm using Articulate. Articulate 360 is the software that you can get, and it comprises lots of different pieces of software in that. The easiest one to use is Rise, and I'm just going to take just literally 2 minutes to show you how to create an e-learning module. So if I click on Create, I've got the option of a course or a micro course. When I click Create New, these are all the ones that I can actually just lift. So you know in PowerPoint or whatever, you can add stock images. With Articulate, you can add stock images, but you can also add whole entire stock courses. I know, Bryony. I know. So look at all of these different topics down the left-hand side. Let's just go to sales and marketing. There you go. Social media marketing 201. Select this course.
Brilliant.
It's created a course for me.
I'm gonna have a senior moment and run around the house in a minute.
I think, why have I spent all this time writing something from scratch?
Well, you know, isn't it so much easier to start with a template? This is actually starting with real content. So you could edit this. Here's your content. It includes all the photos, all the different activities, videos and things like that that you might add. And you can just tweak this. You can actually just click and just change it. I don't want to say that. I want to say something else.
Gosh, it's amazing.
And then pass it off as your own because you've bought that. You've bought that. You own that just the same as you do any of the stock images you might use in PowerPoint. So there you go. I've literally made that course. There we go. And I can just click publish. So it can be as simple as that.
Wow.
So with all of that in mind, I want to just take us to, that's all in Rise, yeah, Articulate Rise, yep, all available in Rise. I thought it might be useful just for us to go into one more breakout and start to just collaborate on putting together a blended program. So if we think about what we've talked about today and some of the ideas that you might have already had, I'm going to open 2 breakout rooms. You get to choose which one you go into. And basically what I'd like you to do is work together to decide what would go before, what would go in the live lesson, and what would go afterwards. Because the key with these blended programs is that anything we do in the live lesson, we only want to keep together people for that valuable time, right? For the collaboration, for the discussions, for the things that we don't want to or can't really do asynchronously. So let's strip it out and think about the other 2. There is, Bryony, you can buy, Articulate do have a kind of LMS, but it's very expensive in my humble opinion. Okay, is everybody, do we want to go into these breakouts just to start talking about, I've got one breakout about Excel, so just think about that in terms of a technical training. So if it's software, if it's some kind of technical thing, what are some of the things that you might put in the before? What might you do when you're live together, and what might you do afterwards? And the other one is communication skills for new team leaders. Yeah, we can take 10 minutes for this, and then we'll still have plenty of time for other questions and things after we come back together. So if I click on open all rooms, you will, in a moment, you should see a breakout rooms button. Click on that and then just join the one that you are most interested in. I'll keep my eye on it. If anyone ends up talking to themselves, I'll come in and rescue you. If you need help getting into a breakout room, just let me know. All right, welcome back. All right, we're all back together again. So tell me, how was that? Maybe let's start with the Excel group. So Deb, Michelle, Penny, Sheridan, I think you were in that group too. What did you come up with?
Don't know if our technical expert, Michelle, is able to share her screen.
Gosh, let's see if I've still got it.
Oh, I hope so. We spent ages doing a whiteboard. Michelle spent ages doing a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe you didn't save it though. You need to save it as a screenshot.
Oh no.
Okay.
But
it was beautiful.
I'm sure it was.
Detailed. It was perfect.
It was beautiful. It was detailed. It was insightful. In fact, it almost showed a bit of raw genius, but just saying.
But we'll never know.
Oh, it did. Yeah.
We did very much think at the beginning phase, it was very much about setting the scene, introducing the trainer, introducing the core, maybe a test to make sure that they are on the right level. If they're not, links back to something else or resources to get them up to speed, or links to an appropriate course. We also had things in there like a glossary, or the kinds of terms that would be in an intermediate level, or the kind of work you do at intermediate level. And then moving on, it was very much focused on practice. So that's either a demo where people are clicking and following, or a live demonstration, and tasks as well, so that people can actually work through things, check their answers at the end, and then see where they went wrong. So very much focused on the practical. And then following up on that, again, it was checking and consolidating learning, so using scenarios rather than just yes/no questions, and using other people who may have done the program as well, so using a forum or a Teams channel to ask for help, to share success, to share challenges, maybe to ask for help of the trainer if there's that relationship and they can still dip into that forum. Those are the things I remember. So I don't know, Sheridan, Deb or Penny, if there's anything else burning that I've missed that was really key.
So I think we were thinking a lot of the knowledge you could do before using e-learning,
And then the live session, obviously you're talking to people, you're potentially problem solving. You could even have them bringing their own problems or their own challenges of, you know, so that then they go away with something concrete. But for the live session, it was definitely explaining, allowing them to say, I have no idea about this, and make sure they've got the understanding behind the clicking.
Yeah. Great. And was it useful to just sort of brainstorm that in a group in terms of the kind of before, during, and after?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, cool. How about the other group then? Communication skills for new team leaders. What did you come up with?
Am I the only one who wrote them down? So we'd said, and these are in no particular order because I just scribbled them. So before the session, we might do some kind of reflective exercise, which might be getting them to think about what kind of communicator they are. That might be quiz related potentially, to, you know, like one of those ones that you'd have had in a magazine if you answer all these A's or whatever, you know what I mean. Maybe a bit of a definition as to what we're talking about in regards to communication. So, because it's such a broad topic, so what the actual workshop or program or whatever it is going to actually focus on, just to get the mind in the right kind of place for it. And then thinking about different communication styles of getting that info across to them in the first place, that it might be either watch, read, or listen to one of these, so they can use their kind of communication preference if they wanted to before the session. And then during the session, we said we'd try to keep obviously that to be the more interactive stuff. So maybe discussion or activities around different communication styles, how they might react to them, discussing where things have perhaps gone wrong in the past. Actually practicing to certain skills that have been kind of shared with them in the session. So practice it and critique, or even just watch a video and critique that. It could be in the session at some point that we ask them to make a video of or do a voice recording of their reaction to something or what they're planning to go and do. Instead of write down your action points, it might be do a video of your action points. Perhaps a discussion on how they collaborate, so how they fill in each other's gaps. So I'm really strong on this and you're really strong on that. Let's kind of work together to see if we can support each other, or in some contexts it might work that one person could pick up the video making, one person could pick up the writing or whatever. And then after, we said go and do something that they've agreed they're going to go and do. So it depends exactly what was in the middle of the programme. So if it was how do you delegate, the communication skills around delegating, it might be go and delegate something that you've agreed you need to delegate and then kind of critique yourself. And then it might be communicate back to the group what you've learned, again using your chosen communication method.
Yeah.
And it could be the one that they like, or it could be the one that they've realised that they need to develop.
Great. I love that. And I think that as designers, a lot of the time we are really focused on that live element, aren't we? Because usually that's what we are almost being paid for, is the can you run a workshop on? But when we take a step back and we think about, well, actually, we could do something before, during, and after it. And it's those things that you mentioned, that sort of personality style quiz or whatever, before they come to the workshop, can be really powerful to get them reflecting and get them really thinking, so that they come to the workshop, and during that live workshop we say, right, what do you want to get out of it? They know what they want to get out of it because they've done some of that pre-work. Now, of course, this all depends on them actually doing the work.
And that's what I was going to, well, I was going to say the opposite, Jennifer, so I didn't want to interrupt you. I was going to say, so they actually come to the workshop, full stop.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, there's that as well, because we can use the e-learning to sort of spark that curiosity, can't we? We could use something like e-learning to give them some information about a topic, or just go straight into a quiz, right? It's a great idea to get people to sort of almost test out of the training. If they pass the quiz, then they don't need to come because they know the answers. But how powerful is it when someone thinks that they're a great communicator, and actually when they go through the e-learning, they choose maybe not the best answer in every situation. So maybe they themselves then go, actually, yeah, maybe I'm more open to this training than I was before. The follow-up is key. Yeah, Michelle, the follow-up's really key. And I think we can use e-learning, we can use it as almost like a job aid so that they can refer back to it. We can use it as a proper resource. Definitely.
So one of the things that we did discuss on the reference, with your previous activity, using it as an on-the-job reference. I was thinking, well, you'd usually have a glossary or something like that, or a video library, which I wouldn't consider e-learning. But so how would e-learning, for that sort of follow-up, what e-learning?
So it could be, you could use
reference?
something like Rise to create a glossary. If we remember back that one that I showed you, that I did for this one, they had almost like a kind of glossary around these different elements. So you could do something like that, and that was done on Rise, with a link to, this is the one that they wanted me to share. Oh, the page is not found now. Great. But it was just a website, and it was just a big long list of all of those.
It's not there anymore because somebody realised it was terrible.
Quite possibly. I hope the information was still accurate, because this e-learning is still in existence somewhere. But yeah, just a big long list. Whereas if you already know some of these terms, but you're just not entirely sure about some of the others, you don't need to. You can just click to expand.
And I think there can be a big element of people wanting to save face. And I mean, this is a really good example, in my opinion. That's a really good example of a topic that a lot of people perhaps feel that they should know more about and really don't. So if you can give them that as a piece of e-learning, so they feel as though they're coming along to something already having a level of knowledge about something that they didn't before, you're probably going to find that that's just a far more productive session with them.
Yeah. I agree, Bryony, although I would probably be inclined to say that that's the kind of topic that people think they do know lots about. So it can work both ways, can't it? Because then all of a sudden they're presented with that big long list and they go, actually, I don't know all of these things.
There's lots of terms in that topic, aren't there? And I don't know exactly what they all mean. So just to clarify your thinking, so you don't use the wrong term and then maybe offend somebody, is quite useful, isn't it?
And I think it also sort of sets that expectation that actually there's more terms than we think, and that applies to so many different subjects, doesn't it? Like if you're thinking about maybe Excel training, here's a list of several formulas that we're going to talk about. Lots of people will say, oh, I know how to do a formula in Excel, but actually when they see the whole list, they go, maybe I don't. So maybe I will come to the training and be open to it. Okay, what other questions, comments, emotional outbursts do we have about e-learning?
I'm intrigued to get an idea from you as to how much an Articulate license costs.
How much do you think it might cost?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
I can tell you how much
a year.
Yeah,
sorry?
I can tell you how much. 2,000, someone said. I can tell you how much a Nimble one, and I hate to keep going on about Nimble, but that's the other one that I really know.
I'll tell you what, Jennifer, I know Brian has been very busy, so we will forgive her. But if she'd listened to our podcast, she'd probably know, wouldn't she? I'm sure you mentioned it on the podcast.
Not done my pre-work.
No, you've been very busy.
There's a link in chat, Bryony, and it's about £1,000 a year.
But it's not. But I was surprised, because that was less than I expected it to be. And as we were chatting on the podcast, if it is something that you're going to use quite a lot, it's worth it.
Totally worth it, because for that price you get Rise, which is one that I've kind of shown you today. You also get Storyline, which is slightly more old-fashioned, but it gives you a lot more choice. And basically, if you can do a decent PowerPoint presentation, you can use Storyline because it's very similar. But there's a bit more functionality, and you can add coding and stuff to make Storyline do whatever you like. Whereas with Rise, it's kind of drag and drop. I'll have this, then I'll have one of these, and it's really easy to put together. But also, for that £1,000 a year or whatever it is, you get that whole suite of templates and real content that you can just use.
Nimble were quoting me not so long ago, and I perhaps shouldn't say it because it's been recorded, but
put it in the chat.
Yeah,
put it in the chat.
I will.
Because prices change all the time as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do, exactly. So I've popped a link in chat for you to have a look at. The LMS part of it says plans start at $12,000 billed annually. So
$12,000
a year. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
that's a lot.
That's the LMS.
That's
isn't
the
it?
LMS part. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not for
Which
many.
we don't need as freelancers. We don't need that.
We don't need that because
sorry, while we've been talking and my brain's been going and doing a little bit of research, I found a link that's top 10 articulate alternatives. Do you mind if I share that in the chat? I don't know if
gosh, no, I'm not on commission from Articulate at all. I've just been using it for years and it's a personal favorite, but no, there's lots of other ones out there that are as good or better probably, but yeah, Articulate's been going a while.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think just to sort of round things off, because I know that Sheridan wants to bring things to a close, is to think about when might you need help. So I've shown you just briefly how easy it is, but you know, sometimes you might just want someone else to do it for you, or you might want some help with it. And so sometimes if it's just a one-off thing, maybe it's going to be cheaper for you just to get someone else to do it and outsource it rather than buying a license for something that you're not really going to use. Maybe it's going to be really complex because it involves lots of different scenarios and like branching questions. So, you know, those kind of choose your own adventure style scenarios, you can absolutely do that in these programs, but sometimes it's just can be a bit more complex. And of course, if you want to just save some time, you can outsource it. Of course, you can outsource it to me, but you can outsource it to lots of other people as well. But definitely get in touch if you do want to talk about your blended programs or talk about e-learning. I'm happy to work with you on that. And of course, as a member, you'd get a discount. So definitely catch up with me about that if that's of interest to you. But Sheridan, I'll hand back to you, and of course we've got plenty of time for any other questions that people do have.
But I was going to say, I mean, it's pretty much VIPs here now, so I don't need to do the normal come along and join us. So if you have got any questions, ask them now while we've got Jennifer's undivided attention.
So one thing I find it useful, I've had people say to me, oh, if you just get Articulate, I squandered my 30-day free trial, unfortunately, because I landed some work, so I didn't use it, so I don't have it free anymore.
Yeah.
But they said, oh, you don't need to go on a course, there's so much on YouTube, you just learn it yourself. Would you say that's actually true, or
I would say
is it easier to have a structured? I
would say it's true for Rise, which is the one that I showed you today, it's absolutely true. For Storyline, it's true to an extent because it's very similar to PowerPoint. You can even import PowerPoint slides and then adapt them in there. But what I would say is that even after a few years of using it on and off, now I don't use them every day, I don't design e-learning every day, but even after years of using it, I went along, they did Articulate themselves did a roadshow in Edinburgh, and I went along for the day and I learned loads just about quicker ways to do things. You know, just like if any of us went on a PowerPoint course or an Excel course or anything else, you use about 80% of the software, don't you? And then someone shows you just one wee button and you go, oh my goodness, that's going to save me hours because I didn't know you could do that. And also one of the other things that Articulate does is they have a community. And in that community, they run challenges. Every week there's a challenge, and that's just an opportunity to try something out, to create a piece of e-learning around a theme, but you get to see everyone else's challenges as well. So even just join the community and see what other people are doing. And that community is great, actually. They share lots of different templates that you can just take and then adapt to your own e-learning and things like that as well. So I don't think that answered your question, Penny, but I think you could muddle through it yourself, and I don't think it would take you any length of time to do at all. But think the training would just enhance that.
And that community mentioned there sounds like the Training Designers Club, but with a focus on e-learning.
Well, yeah,
which
it's
obviously
only
we
focused
don't
on
have.
that particular software even. So, and it's not really focused on instructional design. So there's not usually much in the way of conversations around mapping things to objectives.
It's tech.
It's the tech. It's the how do I make this do that. That's what the community is about. Yeah.
So just whilst we're on here, and just in case any of our VIPs watch the recording, Jennifer did mention that Alex and possibly George are going to do a demonstration for us on the 17th of May. It's a Wednesday at lunchtime. And sort of linking to Penny's question, really, they are completely self-taught. So when Alex spoke to me about it, she said, honestly, if I can pick it up, anybody can pick it up, which I'm sure isn't true. I'm sure she's worked really hard at it. But I think it would be really interesting. They're going to take us through and show us behind the scenes exactly how you go about building a piece of e-learning. So if you just come along to that, it's a two-parter, this one. So so I'll make sure
we needed a cliffhanger.
Which does bring me to normally I say, and next time we're doing, I have to say next time is still not confirmed. So I've been asking in the VIP community for ideas for lunch and learners. So I've put requests out for a couple of people. Hopefully at least one of them will come back. But just whilst I have you is, if you haven't earmarked it already, get in your diary the 30th of June for our next Training Design Festival, which is our all-day event. And I am as well sort of still finalising. I've got most of that day. I'm clear in my head for most of that day, but again, if you've got any suggestions, particularly for the lunch and learning type event, the webinar type event, do let me know, and that would be amazing.
Lovely.
That's great.
Thank you.
So that's it. Any more questions for Jennifer?
No, I'll pop off. Thank you ever so much, Jennifer. That's been brilliant. And thank you, everyone.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for turning up on this Friday afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.